Now, international students studying at UK universities to stay in the country for 2 years after graduating. The announcement by the Home Office reverses a decision made by Theresa May as Home Secretary in 2012, which forced foreign students to leave the country within 4 months of completing their degree. Figures from the UK Council for International Student Affairs show that last year more than 450,000 overseas students were studying in the UK. China sends significantly more students to the UK than any other nation, with 106,000 students from the country deciding to study here in the UK. And according to the university's body, University UK, overseas students contribute £26 billion to the UK economy. Well, the Business Secretary, Andrea Leadsom, says giving overseas students more time to find jobs in the UK after graduating will help the UK's economy.
The UK government's approach is to be open to the brightest and the best from around the world. So we already have record numbers of international students, and we hope to have a 30% increase by this policy of letting them stay for a couple of years afterwards. And for me as Business Secretary, my hope is that we will see a number of them contributing to some of the amazing technological innovations that we're taking forward in that global, outward-facing United Kingdom once we've left the European Union. For many students, if they are head down, focusing on their finals, they often don't spend the time applying for jobs and going around sort of shaking hands with new potential employers until after they graduate. And so it is important that they then have time in which to apply for roles, to wait for a programme to start, for example, if it's a graduate programme. So I think it's a good balance now, giving them 2 years, and obviously in the hope then that at the end of that, if they're in roles which are important to the UK's economy, they'll be able to apply through the appropriate work route to be able to stay on even longer and continue to contribute.
And joining me now is Alp Mehmet, Chairman of Migration Watch UK, an organisation that campaigns for reduced immigration to the UK. Thank you very much for coming along. What do you make of this move from the government then?
I don't see the purpose for it, frankly. I just don't understand why the present system is not working in the way that the new system is allegedly going to work. It's not a case of leaving after 4 months, having completed your degree. You have 4 months in which to find an appropriate job. What is now going to happen is we're going to do away with that 4-month period. There's going to be 2 years in which you could take any job that you can find. I don't think that serves our purposes, our employment purposes. Figures, most recent figures have shown...
Do you disagree then with what the Business Secretary, Andrea Leadsom, was just saying, that it's going to boost the UK's economy? And do you have any evidence that graduates are just taking any job they can find? Mrs. Leadsom was saying in another interview earlier, I think the figure she quoted was more than 50% going into STEM jobs.
50% of students going into, overseas students going into STEM jobs, no, I don't believe that. It just isn't happening. And in fact, where the opportunity has been there for qualified students to take up jobs, only about 5,000 were taking them up. So the demand clearly isn't there. Our latest figures show that there was something like 900,000 who were either inactive or unemployed young people in this country. What is it exactly that we are after? Universities, it just so happens that there's a report out being reported on today from the OECD, which suggests that the government should be doing much more to address poor performing universities and poor degrees, where frankly people are being attracted to do these courses simply to get into the country rather than for any qualifications they may be acquiring.
Well, if students are in the UK to study at a well-recognised university and coming out with a quality degree, shouldn't they have a chance longer than 4 months to try to find a job here?
But that's my point. They do have the opportunity of doing that now. Are you saying that they should take any job going for 2 years in case one should come up that they wish to take up that is at the sort of level that the government allegedly is looking for young people to fill.
This kind of approach, is it putting off the best and the brightest, though, from coming to the UK in the first place to study, which, most countries would want that sort of calibre of student coming to their universities to study?
But they are. Our universities are burgeoning with overseas applications, our best universities. There is no shortage of, you mentioned earlier in one of the clips that Chinese students are coming in ever increasing numbers and at record levels now. So the demand is already there. It's the quality of education that attracts people, not whether or not they can find a way of staying in the country indefinitely having completed their studies. They should be going back, many of these young students, back to the countries that have sent them here with a view to acquiring skills and education that is required in their countries, not to stay on here and do any job that happens to come along.
So just finally and briefly, you think there should be perhaps a greater screening process of those applications as people come in and to ensure that they're doing the kind of degrees that would be of economic benefit to the UK?
Certainly, I have never had any problem with young people from all over the world coming here to take up degree courses and completing them and going back to the countries that they came from. That goes without saying. There are no limits to that, and that should continue. What we're talking about now here is something very different. The people who are being encouraged to stay on, frankly, are those who are looking for a life in another country. It happens to be this one. That is not what higher education should be about.
OK, Alp Mehmet, Chairman of Migration Watch UK.